The first 2 episodes of Agatha All Along just came out, and as apprehensive as I was going into this project, so far it's proven all my doubts wrong. I mean, it's Kathryn Hahn. At the very least, it was never going to be boring, but I was afraid that it wasn't going to be good. But it is, so let's talk about it.
The witch's road will give you the thing you want most. The road is a death wish.
I wasn't really happy anymore with Marvel TV's releases, and if I'm being honest with Marvel in general. With all the recent projects, I was losing excitement. I thought She-Hulk was charming and I liked it, but I wanted more from it. Secret Invasion though was a supreme disappointment to the point where I wondered whether or not I still liked the MCU. And Echo was lackluster and unremarkable story-wise. I haven't even bothered to watch the 2nd season of Loki. I've just been kinda checked out. So even though I was kind of excited for Agatha's show when it was first announced years ago, since then as Marvel TV has just made more and more shows and kept disappointing me, my excitement for Agatha just waned and waned until one day I just stopped looking forward to it. I was still curious and there was no way I wasn't going to watch it, but it says a lot about the disappointment that I've had in the MCU. That this show that is very much for me, it's a show about witches, it has Patti Lupone, Aubrey Plaza, it's starring Kathryn Hahn. This show should be for me, but I was just so hungry for better stories and so disappointed in what the MCU was giving me that I really didn't see the point in looking forward to this anymore. I maintained my curiosity, just not my excitement. Honestly, I was kind of preparing for disappointment, but after seeing the first 2 episodes, honestly, I'm just happy to be excited for something Marvel again. This show picks up where we left off Agatha Harkness in WandaVision. Wanda took all her powers away, so she's powerless, and Wanda also put an identity spell on her. So Agatha is just stuck in Westview thinking she's a normal woman named Agnes. This show is about her breaking free from Wanda's spell, it's about her remembering who she is, and walking down the mythical witch's road to try and gain back her powers. This video is a review and a discussion of the first 2 episodes, so please be aware there will be spoilers. Episode 1 and episode 2 of this show are kind of very different. Most of episode 1 is a fake TV show, so in a way, it's like the show isn't really itself until episode 2. Episode 1 is still very important, but watching episode 1 and 2 so far, right now, it makes episode 1 feel like a prologue. Maybe that'll change as we get more episodes. So I'll talk about episode 1 first, and talk about episode 2, and after that, I'll talk about how optimistic I am about the whole show so far.
Another beautiful day.
Let's get into episode 1. They make it very clear that this is a spin-off of WandaVision. I mean, they literally spell it out. Based on the Danish series WandaVision. I'm sorry, I actually don't know how the Danish sound. Agatha made her MCU debut in WandaVision, and Agatha All Along is made mostly by the same creative team that made WandaVision. So, just like WandaVision having fake sitcoms, Agatha All Along starts with a fake police procedural. You know, one of those weekly crime shows with cops and murders. I thought it was pretty creative that this was the way they chose to remind everyone about what happened to Wanda, that she's quote-unquote dead now, and that she's burnt all the copies of the Darkhold with her. Since, you know, both Wanda and the Darkhold are very important parts of Agatha's current lore in the MCU. I love that Wanda starts out as a Jane Doe. It's very typical for cop shows to have unidentified bodies, and it makes sense since Agatha still has her memories wiped, so the plotline of her wanting to figure out who Wanda is aligns perfectly well as a plot for the cop show that we're parodying, and as a plot for Agatha trying to break free from her spell. It's revealed that this thing is just a series of hallucinations that Agatha's having mixed with real-life elements like the teen and her neighbors, as she's trying to claw her way out of Wanda's spell.
Yes, claw your way out. I'm hot.
And this whole scene, this scene of Agatha literally tearing through layers of identities Wanda has imposed upon her.
What? Oh!
This scene of her breaking free, ripping off her clothes, it's one of the most hype moments I've ever had in a Marvel show. The wardrobe changes, the acting, the drama, it's one of the best moments I've ever had watching Marvel. This scene really makes the whole cops bit worth it, because honestly, as cute as the idea of having the cop show is, and as well executed as it was, there were moments where I felt like it was too long, and that it overstayed its welcome. Also, it felt weird, kind of, tonally. I know they're trying to do a loving parody of cop shows, but the tone of the cinematography and the music during the segment was kind of grounded and serious. But it seems like the writing and the acting were more over the top and big. Look at how big Kathryn's acting here.
There are no names on here.
But there are dates. Well, thanks a bunch for your help, Dottie. You've been an absolute angel. Where were you last night between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m.?
So I felt like there was a disconnect between the grounded visuals and the grounded music and the over-the-top acting and the over-the-top writing, and it really made the whole thing feel more like a cheesy parody at certain points instead of a loving, charming nod. Seriously, I was starting to get alarmed while watching the first episode because I was like, is this gonna be the whole thing? But overall, I liked it more than hated it. I thought it was a fun, creative idea. I'm glad it ended where it ended. As I said, I was having doubts about the show as the cops bit went on, but all of those doubts just melted away as soon as Kathryn Hahn stormed out of her house naked, yelling at her neighbor.
What is going on? Hey, Miss Agnes, you feeling?
As she burst out of that door with her butt bare, I just felt all of my worries melt away. It took just one scene to remind me why I was excited for the show. It's Kathryn freaking Hahn. I've loved her since Parks and Recreation, and she's really great at playing these kind of cynical, kind of mean, but really charming characters, and she plays them with such an electric energy. That's why I loved her as Jen Barkley in Parks and Rec.
And you can trust me. Because I don't care enough about you to lie.
And as Carla in Bad Moms.
Oh, hey, I know you. You're that chick that always picks up my kid from school when I forget / don't want to.
She's just great, and she won me back into the MCU with just one scene. The scene was hilarious, but it was also interesting because it told us that this whole time, the whole 3 years, she really has just been chilling in Westview, and all the people living there have just been going along with calling her Agnes and pretending that she's not a witch, that she's their neighbor. That's Agatha. You all know that's Agatha. That's literally the witch that saved you from the other witch that mass tortured and mind controlled you. If I were there, I think I would try to go to Agnes and tell her that you're not Agnes, you're Agatha. But to be fair, it does seem that the people of Westview are still pretty traumatized by Wanda and they're still pretty afraid of her.
Wanda.
Ooh, we try not to say her name.
Ugh.
Which is valid. I love Wanda and I'm such a huge fan of her, but it's still so true that she really messed up these people emotionally and mentally. So in episode 2, when we see the foundation of Wanda and Vision's house being defaced, yeah, it makes sense. They probably just went along with Agnes and never tried to reveal her identity to her because they were probably afraid that Wanda would find out and punish them in some way. It's described too that in the past few days, Agatha has been out of it.
You haven't been yourself the past few days. Almost like you got bit by the true crime bug.
This was probably the time while she was hallucinating the cop show and breaking out of the spell, and Herb tells her that the neighbors have been helping out, bringing her groceries and stuff.
I mean, folks been trying to help out, you know, stopping by and bringing you groceries.
And I think that's so sweet. I think that's so charming. Yeah, that's the woman that helped save them from Wanda's hex. So it makes sense that they would want to help Agatha. They were so nice bringing her groceries. Also, I just realized that Herb is the name Wanda gave this guy for her show, so Herb really isn't his name. The way that Mrs. Hart really isn't her name and Sharon is her name.
But my real name is Sharon.
Yeah, and I still don't know what Herb's real name is. Sorry, Herb. But I really liked seeing them. I liked seeing the Westview residents. Now remember in Birds of Prey, when Harley Quinn and Joker broke up, it meant that Harley was no longer under the protection of the Joker, and that everyone that she offended back then was now coming after her to kill her. Agatha All Along's main narrative tension driver is similar to that in a way. Agatha didn't have a criminal boyfriend protecting her, but she was an incredibly powerful witch for a very long time. So yeah, she must have pissed off a lot of other magical people, but now that she's powerless, they're all coming after her, starting with April from Parks and Rec. It's so nice that April is now in the MCU. Star-Lord was from Parks and Rec. Captain Marvel was from Parks and Rec. But before we get to that, I just want to say that it's kind of nice how the show implies that all throughout this time, while Agatha was under Wanda's identity spell, she was also under some sort of a protection spell. Rio mentions Agatha's been hiding.
You hid behind all that dark magic.
But even when Agatha was powerless, she was untraceable. Nobody could find her, which means that Wanda hid her, and I think that's sweet. Wanda did kind of say that she's just hiding Agatha because she might need her one day.
You have no idea what you've unleashed. You're gonna need me.
If I do, I know where to find you.
Wait.
So it makes sense that she'd protect her, but I like it. Where were we? Oh, Agatha is free from Wanda's spell now. People are trying to kill her, and Rio is the first one to arrive. And, well, let the homosexual games begin.
I've missed you.
Does anyone get a little bit of a gay vibe?
These two have definitely, banged in the past, right? I'm not the only one who thinks that. Do people still say bang? Sorry. These two have definitely fucked in the past, right? And if they haven't yet, they should. They really should. We don't have to know about it and we don't have to see it, but they really should. What can I say? Kathryn Hahn and Aubrey Plaza, they just have such a great chemistry together. Well, actually, the entire cast have great chemistry together, but we'll get more into that later. Rio's definitely interesting, and all the implied past that she and Agatha have is probably one of the hooks that'll keep me invested. But this is sick, and it is twisted, and I want more of it. In summary, episode 1, cop parts, cool, but kinda overstayed, but not really. But everything after that, top tier TV. Episode 2.
The road promises that what's missing awaits you at its end. Power.
But before we go on, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider leaving a like or a comment, or maybe even a subscribe. That would help me out a lot. Thank you. As I mentioned so far, the first episode feels like a prologue, and it's really the second episode that launches the show into its main plot. Agatha has to walk the witch's road to gain back her powers, and to do that, we need to recruit witches. I like both episodes so far, but I think episode 2 is definitely my favorite. For context, I'm a huge fan of witches as characters in fantasy. I've read and reread many times the witches books in the Discworld series, and Coven and Apocalypse are my favorite seasons of American Horror Story, even though those seasons are kind of hot misses. So yeah, this episode and this whole show becoming about a coven of witches who are on a perilous, desperate journey. Oh yeah, I'm on that ride. I am there. I am set. Also, the outfit Agatha's wearing to go recruiting these witches is so simple, but it's so stylish. If it were all black, she could fit right into this iconic coven image. So we meet the other witches. I really love that the coven that we have is made up of, for lack of a better way to describe them, really loser type girl failure witches. They're strong characters for sure, and by that I mean that they're performed really well by their actors, and for appearing in one episode so far, the show's done a great job at fleshing them out as characters, but they're not exactly powerful people or strong in terms of magic ability. They have potential, probably, but right now they're underdogs. That's like the respectful way of describing them, and I love that. They're losers. I mean, later in the episode, I love it so much that Agatha has to insult them and belittle them just to try and emotionally trigger them so that they would blast her.
You can forget the witch's road. I'd die before letting you befoul it with your noxious mediocrity.
But they're kind of not strong enough, so they struggle with making the magic blasts that both Wanda and Agatha just casually throw around.
Disappointment. I'd say you should burn like the rest of them, but that would be a waste of kindling. Enough!
It really puts into perspective how powerful Agatha and Wanda are as witches, that they can just throw those balls around, and these women have to, like, really charge up. The cast bounces off really well with each other, they're really charming together, and I have to say this, the show is really funny in a way that the MCU hasn't been funny for so long. Most of the movies have had this quippy, so that just happened type of humor, and as fun as that was when it first started, and as fun as that still is for a lot of people, I guess it's just gotten really old for me at this point, and it's been imitated so much by a lot of untalented, unfunny people that it's just made that type of humor kind of also really unfunny. So I'm happy that the humor in Agatha is at the very least mostly not like that.
Wait, what?
Thank you for your purchase. Your bank statement will say Lilia's leggings, but that's just my side hustle.
There's a scene in the episode where Agatha's just woken up from the mind spell, so she's a bit wonky, I guess, and she goes to drive her car.
And this is not a car. Okay, that's all right.
I think it meant that while she was Agnes, every time she thought she was driving or going somewhere, she was just in this thing, hallucinating. Wanda probably hexed her that way because after all, she probably didn't want Agnes going out of Westview. Mrs. Hart, or shall I say Sharon, was also a standout in terms of humor in this episode. She's so funny and adorable, but I am really terrified because I have the strangest feeling that she will probably die in the future. The near future. Agatha's mean.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
And she's disliked by a lot of people.
How far you've fallen, witch killer.
And a lot of the levity comes from that. In this episode, we have the Witch's Road sequence. The Coven has to sing the song to summon the Witch's Road, and it's one of the best scenes in all of Marvel TV so far. The song is just so fun lyrically, but it's just elevated a lot by how it's performed. As somebody who constantly goes back to Patti Lupone's Anything Goes performance, I was just kind of listening to her, singling her voice out in the mix, but the whole thing, chef's kiss. Why are you trying to slide a couch? The house doesn't have a door. What do you think the couch will do? Episode 2 is great, so now let's move on to my overall thoughts. I haven't really talked about Joe Locke yet, or for now, Teen, as he's known in the show. I do think he's a really fun character so far, and his identity, the way his mouth gets blocked when he says his name, or how Agatha can't hear him talk about his background, I think it's very interesting. I didn't really like how they handled the mysteries in WandaVision, so I'm glad that it seems that the mysteries in Agatha feels like it's being handled better. Although, you know, most people already have a pretty good guess, I think, of who Teen is going to be. I'm not really somebody who gets mad at obvious reveals. I'll just go along the ride. But if he does turn out to be Wiccan, I think a lot of Wiccan fans will be disappointed. I've heard a lot of Wiccan fans say they think Joe Locke is miscast. I don't really have any opinions about that because I don't really know Wiccan like that. What I do know is that I like Teen on the show so far. I like what I've seen of him. But I also think it would be a terrible shame if it's true that he's not faithful to the comics. It seems like Wiccan has a lot of very passionate fans. As I've said, the show is really making me excited. I enjoy the main character, and so far, I'm really enjoying the plot. Tonally, I think the show knows exactly what it wants to be. It's rare for me to say that for a Marvel show, this one doesn't feel like it's holding back. It knows that its main character is a villain, and it's not shy about that so far. Agatha doesn't feel like a sanitized, cleaned up version of herself. At least not yet. She's the villain who killed a dog, she kidnapped children, and she still feels that way. Although, you know, with a bit more depth now. I am so ready. Agatha All Along. What did you guys think? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Did you hate it? Please tell me in the comments. I would like to know. That is it. I'm out.